all of us as a Muslim community. As you know, our new president, Donald Trump, signed a bunch of executive orders, and each of them has a repercussion. So we're all going to listen to Brother Edward to see how it's going to impact us as a believer, as a citizen, and as a law-abiding, Muslim in this community. So that we know our right, we know our act, and inshallah we can lead a life that is safe, blissful, and inshallah productive. With this, welcome Brother Edward. Thank you so much.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Brothers, sisters, it's good to be with you. Again, I'm Edward Ahmed Mitchell. I'm the Deputy Director of CAIR National. When I first visited you 8 years ago, I was the director of our Georgia chapter, and I was always happy to come over and visit and support our Alabama chapter, and I'm happy to be with you on behalf of our national office. Tonight, inshallah, we're going to be discussing something unexpected. My original plan when I scheduled this event was to come and give you a general know your rights training, knowing your rights in regard to schools and the workplace and policing. We've done it before in the past, but it was good to do a reminder. But obviously, President Trump was inaugurated on Monday, and on Tuesday, he started signing executive orders, about 200 of them, some of them which are relevant to the Muslim community, and especially people who are immigrants. And so instead, we're going to tonight is talk about the executive orders that are relevant to our community, what they could mean for us, positively, negatively, and what, inshallah, you need to know to make sure that your rights are protected. And inshallah, we'll take questions about that. If you have questions about anything else that CAIR works on, I will take those as well. As you all know, CAIR is our nation's largest Muslim civil rights and advocacy organization. Our main focus is defending your right to be freely Muslim in America. For your kids to go to school in peace, you to go to work in peace, to be able to travel in peace without being discriminated against because you are Muslim. That's our job. So if you have any issues with that, you call on us, inshallah. Now, before we go into the presentation, I want to note one important thing, which will be good news, alhamdulillah. As you all know, we had an Alabama chapter here for several years, and it did quite well, but eventually things kind of petered out and when there were some issues and it died off. As I told you during my last visit, our goal was to restart our Alabama presence here, but as a satellite office, not as a chapter. For those of you who were here last time, anyone remember what the difference is? Anyone remember? No? Okay, I won't quiz you. So a satellite office is different than from a chapter in this way. When we establish a CAIR chapter in a state, it takes a long time. You have to have your own board of directors, you have to get a nonprofit status, you have to fundraise a lot of money, build up a whole, it takes a long time. With a satellite office, what we do is the national office hires staff to work in Alabama. That staff reports directly to us at the national office. We provide them with resources and guidance, and they do the work on the ground in Alabama. So alhamdulillah, we've been working to get that office restarted. I'm happy to announce to you that we are back and running, alhamdulillah. We have hired an attorney just for the state of Alabama based here. Some of you may know her. She was a law clerk for CAIR Alabama 7 years ago, and then she went off and started her legal career. Alhamdulillah, she's an experienced attorney, and she is going to be your CAIR Alabama attorney right here in the state of Alabama. She's in the backyard. I know you don't want to turn around and look, but her name is Britton Shields. And she will, inshallah, be available to all of you to support you and work with you in the coming months and, inshallah, years. And so we're very happy about that. And thank you for your support. That's allowed us to start this up again. And we're looking forward to supporting you, not from D.C., but right here on the ground in Alabama, inshallah. So with that, let's dive in. So we're going to talk about President Trump's executive orders and, again, their impact on the Muslim community. So first, I will quiz you with one question, which is, what's an executive order? Anyone want to tell me what an executive order is? Bismillah.
Does it require the approval of the parliament or something which can be given directly by the president or the prime minister?
Okay, so the answer that he gave was it's something that doesn't require the approval of parliament, or in this case, Congress, that it's something the president or the prime minister can do by themselves. That is true, yes. Anyone want to add any more? What's that? Only good for 3 years. Okay, that's interesting. So I'll address that in a moment. Anyone else want to give me a little description? Sisters? All right, how about this? What's the difference between a law and an executive order? You kind of hit on it, but someone give me a little more detail. Yes, sister. Yes, so she said a law has to be passed through Congress, an executive order doesn't. It just takes the president signing it, yes? So yeah, that's pretty much true. So every president signs executive orders. Every single president, when they come in, they sign executive orders. And all it is the president telling federal agencies, I want you to do this or not do that. They can relate to all sorts of things. They can relate to financial issues, social issues, economic issues, immigration, foreign policy, et cetera, et cetera. The executive order does not require approval from Congress. It becomes effective the moment the president signs it. Now, can the president do anything he wants by executive order? No. He has to stay within the limits of the law, right? He can't just make something up and do it on his own. Whatever he's telling the government to do, it has to be allowed by some existing law and by the Constitution. So when President Trump, when he took office back in 2017, what was the first executive order that he signed? One of the first. The Muslim ban, right? And so his argument was that, look, the law gives me the authority to choose if I want to shut down immigration to this country from certain countries if I think that's what needs to happen. That was his argument, right? He was sued over that. We went to court. There was a big back and forth. He lost initially. He lost the second time. And the third time, he watered down the Muslim ban. He softened it a lot, changed it around, and that is what eventually was accepted by the Supreme Court, right? That version of the Muslim ban. And the court said that he had the legal authority to choose to do this. He didn't have to do it, but he could do it if he wanted to do it. Now, when President Biden took office in 2021, what did he do? He got rid of it. First day in office, he just signed a new order saying that order is gone, right? So every president does this. The executive orders will last indefinitely until a president gets rid of it. So it's not like a 3-year thing, or as long as no one has gotten rid of it, that executive order stays in place. So one fun fact, the oldest executive order still in the books was signed in 1903 by President Theodore Roosevelt, creating like a nature preserve on Pelican Island. And that one is still in existence because no president has gotten rid of it. So when President Trump took office about a week ago, he signed about 200 executive orders. We're only going to talk about 2 of them tonight. One of them was an order about birthright citizenship. The other one was an order about free speech and immigration. Those are the 2 we're going to talk about and what their impact is. So first, birthright citizenship. What is birthright citizenship? Someone to tell me what that is? Okay, so the answer was anyone born in the United States becomes a citizen. Anyone have a different answer? Yes, sister. Okay, so the answer she said was anyone born here becomes a citizen, but there are 2 exceptions. What are the exceptions, you think? Very good answer. So the 2 answers she gave were one. So first of all, here's what the amendment actually says in the Constitution. It says that anyone born here or naturalized, anyone who is a born and bred American citizen or a naturalized citizen, you're good. With one exception, you have to be subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. Subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. That's the catch. Now, over 100 years ago, the Supreme Court had a big case about what that meant. What does subject to the U.S. jurisdiction mean? And what the court decided was that all it means is that if you're born here, you're a citizen, unless in some unique case, you are not subject to our laws. For example, as the sister said, diplomats. If you're a diplomat from a foreign country, you're the ambassador from Spain or Saudi Arabia or whatever, you come here, you are not subject to our laws. You have what's called diplomatic what? Immunity, right. So if you're driving and you're speeding and you run over someone, technically you can't usually be charged with a crime for that. You might get kicked out of the country, but you have diplomatic immunity up to a point. So you're not subject to our laws. And so the amendment, as the Supreme Court interpreted it, means that if you're born here, you're a citizen unless you're a diplomat or the child of a diplomat. right? That's the one key exception. Now, the other issue of if you invaded the country, that actually doesn't apply. You still, if you are here and you have a child who was born here, let's say you were foreign, some foreign invader, and you have a child here, technically that child would be an American citizen, right? So the big exception is being a diplomat, right? Now, President Trump is trying to argue that no. Subject to the jurisdiction means that your parents have to be here legally. That if your parents are both illegally here and then you're born, you are not subject to our jurisdiction. That's what he is arguing. And again, that is not what the Supreme Court ruled over 100 years ago. But his hope is, number one, to make his base happy by giving them something they wanted. He's showing them that he's trying. But number two, to get it into court. Because you never know what happens when things go in front of the court, right? You might get a new decision. So that's what this fight is about. The order says the United States will not recognize automatic birthright citizenship for the children of illegal aliens born in the United States. We are also going to enhance vetting and screening of all aliens. So within 24 hours of this happening, some immigrant families sued the Trump administration. And a judge has already blocked this executive order and said it's blatantly unconstitutional. And that judge was appointed by, anyone know what president? Reagan, Ronald Reagan, right? So this is a conservative judge. So it's already been blocked. It has no effect right now. This will work its way through the court system. It might take several years before we get a decision from the Supreme Court, but no one really expects this to go anywhere. But again, you never know. We'll see. So for now, bottom line, no one needs to worry about this, inshallah. Just carry on. It has really no practical impact. The one thing I think that we should be doing is encouraging our elected officials to speak out against this, encouraging members of Congress to say, I believe in birthright citizenship, that I believe if you're born here, you're an American citizen, period, unless you have that weird exception, right? It's good to make sure that this is a universal view held by all of our members of Congress. This doesn't become some normalized view that we don't want people who are born here to not be citizens, all right? So I just explained to you what all that is, so we're good there. Now, let's talk about the next one. This is the one that is more concerning. So the other order he signed was called Protecting the United States from Foreign Terrorists and Other National Security and Public Safety Threats. Now, when we looked at the title of this, you might think, okay, this is going to be another what? Muslim ban, right? So that was what you would think he was going to do. He would just put the Muslim ban in place again. He did not. He did something very different this time, and he actually did something very legally smart and clever. So the order has multiple aspects to it, but there are really two key things. One of the orders says that he wants the Department of Homeland Security within 60 days to identify which countries are so unsafe, which countries have such flawed vetting procedures that we cannot let anyone come to our country from those countries. They're just not safe, right? That's the first thing he says. The second thing he says is that for all immigrants, people who want to come to this country, we're going to impose new vetting procedures. We're going to do extreme vetting on everyone. Not just checking if you have a criminal record. We're going to check to see what you believe, what you've been posting on social media. What are your personal views about America, about American policy, about American politics? That's the second thing. The third thing is we're going to start vetting immigrants who are already here. Lawful permanent residents, students on visas, workers on visas, tourists. We're going to start investigating you to see what your views of American culture and identity and government and institutions and what you've been saying about policy issues. And we're going to decide whether or not you shouldn't be here anymore. So those are the three unique things about this order. We're going to go into detail about each one of those things, inshallah. So first, the Muslim ban. So the mistake President Trump made 8 years ago, I believe it was 8 years, mashallah. 8 years ago was that he got into office and immediately said, all right, we're banning these countries, and that's it, right? There was not a lot of thought put into why those countries, right? And when you combine the fact that he'd said crazy stuff about Muslims with the fact that he just immediately banned countries, that made it pretty easy for people to sue, including CAIR, and for eventually his Muslim ban to be defeated in its original form. This time, again, he didn't just jump and do it again. This time he did something very smart. He said, you know what, we're going to take 2 months. We're going to actually look at the countries and see which countries are so unsafe that we can't let people here. And so this is what DHS is supposed to do. Over this next 60 days, they're supposed to look at the countries and see which ones can we not allow anyone to come here from. So the question is going to be, are they going to implement a ban on countries again, like just a total ban. You can't come here at all, no matter what. That's what they did last time. We expect them to do this for at least some countries. Which ones? We don't know. I would not be surprised if it's the obvious ones: Afghanistan, Libya, maybe Syria. He has mentioned he doesn't want people coming from Gaza. So I would not be surprised if it's those countries or territories, and maybe some of the other ones that he originally banned, like Iran and North Korea and others. You never know, but that's what we're kind of expecting, that it could be those countries. Now, what impact does this have on you? So in theory, if he does the same thing that he did last time, in terms of the ban that was eventually approved, this ban would only apply to people who have not already attained legal status in America, have not already come here, right? So in theory, if you are from Syria, right, and you've never been to America before, you don't have any sort of immigration status, you're not getting in. But if you are already here and you're a Syrian citizen and you're here as a lawful permanent resident, in theory, you should be fine. The problem is, when the president did his first Muslim ban 8 years ago, he initially tried to apply it to everyone, including lawful permanent residents, such that if you had a green card and you left the country, you wouldn't be able to get back in. That was what he tried to do the first time. The question is, will he try to do that again and see if he can get away with it? We don't know. If he were to do that, there would be a huge legal fight, because the Supreme Court did not approve that. That did not get approved last time. And so if he tries to do that this time, that would be a legal fight. So we don't know if he'll do that. Most likely what he will try to do is just to ban immigrants who are not already here, do not already have legal status in America, right? So practically speaking, what does that mean? It means that, look, if you are, I'm not going to tell people not to leave the country, but if you are not a citizen and you are from one of the countries that was targeted with the Muslim ban last time around, I think you do have to have some question of whether or not you want to leave the country in the next 60 days. Maybe you just want to stay put and chill out and wait and see what he does, in 60 days' time, so you don't get caught overseas and then, hemmed up at the airport. Not saying you need to be that worried, but if it was me, I might put some thought into whether or not I'm just going to delay my vacation until after 60 days just to make sure, nothing happens. Again, can't say anything will happen, but to be safe, something to think about, inshallah. The other thing I want to note is that, actually, we'll pause here. So that's the potential return of the Muslim ban. For now, there is no Muslim ban. He did not re-implement it. It does not exist at the moment. So in theory, right now, you're fine. The question will be, in 60 days' time, what happens? Now, let's get to the other parts of this executive order. So this is where it gets really interesting. So, as I mentioned, he says that we are going to vet and screen to the maximum degree possible all aliens who intend to be admitted, enter, or are already inside the United States. Now, this is very, very, very strange, because normally an executive order like this would apply to people who are not here already, right? So aliens who want to come here, if you're not already in America, the government can do all sorts of vetting on you. They can check all sorts of stuff. You have no right to come here if you're not already here, okay? So that's not unusual to vet people who are not already here, okay? It's not unusual to vet people even if they get their initial visa, like their tourist visa, their worker visa, their student visa, and they get to the airport. Even then, all sorts of vetting can occur before they let you in, because you're not a citizen, you're not guaranteed the right to come to the country. But once you are already here, once you're here, it's like getting home plate, right? In theory, you should be safe and fine to stay here for as long as your visa allows you to be here, as long as you don't violate the law, as long as you didn't lie about your application, something like that. So what's unique about this is he's saying that we're not only going to be doing extreme vetting of the people who want to come here, we're going to vet the immigrants who are already here, okay? Now, that's very unusual, very, very unusual. So what are the implications of this? So again, 3 categories of people. So the potential immigrants, if you've got relatives or friends or whoever who live overseas, they want to come here to work, to go to school, to be a tourist or what have you, they are very likely to go through extreme vetting and maybe even face delays in their application process that would not exist before. What could that vetting include? It could include checking your social media. It could include, maybe if they have some ability to check your private messages, because the government can spy on people overseas. They just can't spy on you here at home, in theory. Might be checking your private messages and things like that of people overseas. to see what their views are. Now, I'm going to talk in a moment about this. Let me jump ahead briefly. So some of the things they're going to be looking for when they're doing this extreme vetting is whether or not a person has expressed or supports hateful ideologies, has hostile attitudes towards the United States, has supported sectarian violence, and they're going to be looking at whether or not you have hostile views. When I say you, I mean an immigrant who wants to come here. Hostile views towards American culture, the American government, American institutions, or American identity. So all this is very, very what? Vague, right? What is a hostile view towards American culture, towards American government? If you're a British guy who's coming here and you've said online that you think the parliamentary system is better than the presidential system, is that a hostile view? Are you going to be banned from the country? Probably not. What is this all about? The president during the campaign told pro-Israel groups he was going to kick out students who support Hamas, right? All those college kids who were protesting the Gaza genocide, they weren't protesting for any Palestinian faction. They were protesting for the Palestinian people. But in the minds of anti-Muslim and anti-Palestinian bigots, they're all pro-Hamas, right? So what they are really trying to do is to set up a way to go after people who support Palestinian human rights, especially college kids who are here on student visas and workers who are here on worker visas and even lawful permanent residents. So what you could see is them arguing that if you've criticized the United States government for its Palestine policy, that might be considered a hostile attitude, right? If you have said phrases that they think are violent, for example, if you're at a protest and you yell the word intifada, right? Now that word just means revolution, right, in Arabic, right? It's just like, it's just the word revolution, right? But to anti-Palestinian groups, when they hear intifada, they think that means violence, that means war, right? That is not what the word inherently means. And in fact, during the Arab Spring, which our country celebrated, those peaceful protesters used the word intifada, right? Because it just means revolution. But anyway, from the administration's perspective, they hear that word, they might think, oh no, that means you're calling for sectarian violence, okay? Hateful ideology, right? What does that mean? Does that mean if you're a devout Muslim, does that mean you support a hateful ideology? If you support Palestinian human rights, does that mean you're anti-Semitic? No, but again, because it's vague, this gives them wiggle room to try to read all sorts of crazy stuff into these phrases. So those are the kind of extreme vetting criteria you might see. Again, it's vague on purpose so that they can just kind of, do what they want to do under the guise of one of those categories. And again, applying to people who are not here, expected. But they also want to apply this to people who are already here. They want to investigate people who have already gotten legal status or already here. And in theory, what they're really threatening to do is to investigate people who are here. And then if they say that you have expressed views like this, if you are hostile in this way, then we're going to kick you out of the country. That's what they're essentially threatening to do. Now, can they do that? No, that's not, well, let me put it this way. It's not going to be a cakewalk for them because once you're here, especially if you're a lawful permanent resident, you have all sorts of legal protections, right? If you were to commit a crime, if you lied about your application, then that's an easy way to get you kicked out of the country. But just because of your personal political views, your personal views about the American government, that is not a legitimate basis to kick you out of the country or strip you of your legal status. Can they try? Yes. Is it going to turn into a big legal fight? Yes. Will that legal fight result in a victory for the person being targeted? I would hope and expect so, but again, once things go to court, you never know. So that is why that's going to be the big fight, we believe, is if they start trying to investigate people who are already here and trying to kick them out of the country because of their personal views, that's going to be a huge legal fight. Now, one of the other things the order says is, it's very specific. It says, if someone has expressed support for an FTO, that will be a basis for kicking them out of the country. Anyone know what an FTO is? Foreign terrorist organization. So an organization the United States has designated as a terrorist group. So that's the other big thing in this. So again, what they're alleging is that they think college kids who protested support Hamas or Hezbollah or what have you, right? And at some protests, there were some knuckleheads who were saying things that they really should not have been saying. That was a small minority of people protesting, right? But what this order is saying is that if you have expressed those views in the past, or you do, we're coming after you, right? And so, again, that part of the order is probably much more likely to pass legal muster than the other parts, because that's something very, very specific. It's something that you understand what an FTO is. Again, even that might be a legal fight, but that part of it might be more likely to escape scrutiny than the other parts. So what to do about all this? How should we be reacting to this, this potential crackdown on immigration? So a few things. One, the purpose of all this really is not necessarily to accomplish all this, not even necessarily get people kicked out of the country, but part of it is to create a chilling effect, to scare people into not speaking up for Palestine, to scare people into not criticizing American policy towards the Middle East, right? That is part of the goal of this. So the first thing is that people should not be afraid to speak their mind, to criticize our government's policies about the Middle East, about Palestine, not be afraid to criticize our presidents, our senators, our members of Congress, right? That is the right of anyone in this country. You have free speech if you are in this country. Having said that, you should be smart, right? If you are not an American citizen and you are here on some sort of temporary legal status, then yeah, you should be a little more careful with how you express your views, right? That's just common sense, okay? No matter what your legal status is, you should not be expressing support for FTOs at all, right? That's just common sense. That's not something you do. It's could get you in legal danger, and that's not something you should ever do. But if you are someone who is not a citizen and you're doing that, you're in much greater risk, right? Because your presence here is not guaranteed. So a few things. Number one is carry on with your lives, continue to be an activist, continue to speak up, that's fine. Do so in a smart way. Don't say stupid stuff on social media, at protests, things you should not be saying anyway. Exercise wisdom and common sense, right, when you are engaging in political activism. If you are not a citizen and you're not a lawful permanent resident, let's say you're just here on a student visa, a worker visa, or a tourist visa, you have the least amount of protection, right? If you're a U.S. citizen, you're fine. No one can take that away from you. No one can kick you out of the country. You're good. Unless you had, for example, lied on your citizenship application, something like that. Short of that, you're safe. If you're a lawful permanent resident, you also are pretty safe. You have a lot of legal protection once you get that green card, okay? Not the same as a citizen, but a lot of protection. But if you're here on some sort of temporary visa, you have the least amount of protection of those categories of immigrants. And so you probably need to be the most careful about what you're doing and what you're saying, okay? Because your presence here is temporary, and if you try to increase your status to go from being on a student visa to a green card, maybe they don't let you do that because they've done this vetting and they see that you've said something they don't like, right? So I said it to say that yes, be bold, yes, be brave, speak your mind, but also be aware of what your status is in this country. If you're at that lower tier of status, then you might just want to be a little cautious, a little safe, and a little circumspect about exactly how much activism you are doing and what you are saying. And we can talk to you one-on-one about exactly what you want to do and what you're planning to say to give you some guidance about that. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about. So that's the executive order. So we've covered so far birthright citizenship. We've covered the potential return to the Muslim ban. We've covered this crackdown on free speech and legal immigration. Now let's talk about what they're doing about illegal immigration. So everyone knew that President Trump was coming for illegal immigrants or undocumented immigrants, right? That was a big part of the campaign. That's not a surprise to anyone. What is unique about his mass deportation plan, as he calls it, is that he has announced that we have a change in policy. Normally, immigration officers would not go into sensitive places to try to arrest undocumented immigrants. What are the places they normally would not go into? Anyone know? Churches, schools, what? Workplaces? No, they would go into workplaces. Yeah. Hospitals, yeah. So hospitals, schools, houses of worship, shelters, these usually were off limits to ICE raids, okay? Not anymore. The president has said they can go there. They can go to mosques, to churches, hospitals, schools. They can go where they need to go to arrest undocumented immigrants, illegal immigrants. So that is the one big change to this. Now, the president has said that they're prioritizing undocumented immigrants who have committed some sort of crime, that they're not going after DACA recipients or people who've been here for years and put down roots and haven't done anything illegal other than coming here illegally. That's what they say. In reality, though, no one is really convinced that's going to be the case, right? It's very likely that eventually, even if not right now, they're going to start scooping up pretty much anyone. They're already raiding workplaces, which are likely going to be people who have not committed a crime. They're going to work. They're trying to earn a living in this country. Now, what does this mean for our community? So look, there are undocumented people in the Muslim community. We know this. There are some people who are here and are outside of their legal status. I do not know of many mosques or masajid or other Muslim institutions that provide shelter or sanctuary to Muslim immigrants, but if they exist, it is possible that the government might start to target those institutions to go after people. Now, this will bring me in a moment. I'm going to talk about what some of the legal rights that you have when dealing with immigration authorities are. We'll talk about that in a moment. But just bottom line now is to understand that there really is no safe place anymore, right? And so for houses of worship, hospitals, schools, those places can be raided, but the government still has to go through the legal process to get approval to go into an institution. They can't just show up at a mosque and say, we're coming in without approval, right? They do not have the right to, they still need a warrant to do that, okay? But before they wouldn't even try. Now they can, they just have to get a warrant to do it. All right, so, yes, we'll skip this. That's it. All right, so let me go to, let's talk a little bit more about immigration, what your rights are. Okay, so, okay. All right, so a few other things that are happening. So number one, the president has, and these are miscellaneous things, the president has completely shut down the refugee resettlement program. So all refugees, banned. Even refugees who'd already gotten legal status, had already gotten plane tickets, canceled. They're done, they're not getting in. He has blocked all that, and he has the legal authority to do that. You might expect things to slow down drastically when applying for any sort of immigration to come to the country. So if you got relatives who are applying to come here to visit you, tourists, whatever, you can expect a slowdown when they are applying to come here, especially if they're from Muslim countries or countries that are not friendly to American foreign policy. You can expect to see a lot more, again, the mass deportation, the raids and things of that nature. You can expect to see that people who are here on temporary protective status, meaning Syrians or Somali, whoever, people who are here and they're here under asylum because they fear being oppressed back home, very likely their legal status will not be renewed. So that would mean they have to go back to the country they came from. Now, what are your rights? Let's say you are a U.S. citizen and you get confronted by an immigration officer who thinks that you are an illegal immigrant. Or what if you have a coworker or a friend who's undocumented and ICE shows up? What are your rights? What can you do? So first of all, ICE can only arrest people who are not citizens of the United States, right? If you're a U.S. citizen, ICE has no authority over you. They should not be doing anything to you unless you interfere with what they're doing, then you might get arrested for that. They're only, in theory, going after people who are not citizens and are here illegally, in theory. The problem is when they do these raids, sometimes they scoop up everyone not knowing who is and who is not a citizen. So a few days ago in New Jersey, they raided some workplace and they ended up arresting not only undocumented immigrants, they arrested an American citizen who was a military veteran. They just arrested him. They just thought, well, I don't know, I'm assuming he was Latino, and they just thought, okay, well, you're with the undocumented guys, so we're gonna get you too, we'll figure it out later, right? And so they let him go once they figured he was a citizen, but that's the danger, right? If you are just gonna get scooped up because you're next to an undocumented immigrant and you're Latino, that's chaos, right? It's just a recipe for racial profiling, discrimination, and jamming up people who are not supposed to be targeted. Now, even if you are here in an undocumented status, if you are, you have some basic rights, right? So a few things. Number one, everyone in America, if you're confronted by the police or law enforcement, you do have a right to remain silent insofar as you don't have to incriminate yourself in wrongdoing, right? If the police ask, what's your name? you have to tell them, right? If they have some legitimate reason to stop you, what's your name, basic information, yes. You don't have to confess to crimes you've committed, right? That's a universal position. You do not have to confess to crimes you have committed. Specifically when you're dealing with immigration issues, a few things. Number one, and this applies at the airport as well, don't sign things without talking to an attorney. There have been incidents where you had, for example, students who had the right to be here. They had student visas. They were coming to the airport and the government decided we're not letting any more Iranian students come back into the country. This happened several years ago. And what they try to do is to make these students sign a paper voluntarily giving up their right, giving up their visa and agreeing not to come here again for 10 years, right? And so if you don't know what you're signing, you could actually sign away your legal rights to be here. So don't sign stuff without talking to an attorney to make sure that what you're signing is not going to undermine your rights. You can ask for an interpreter. If you're not clear, your English isn't that great, you're a little confused, you can ask for an interpreter to make sure you're understanding what is going on. If you are detained, you can ask for a phone call as well. If any law enforcement officer comes to your house, to your car, to your institution, this is universal. No one can just come into your personal space without what? A warrant, right? A warrant. They have to have a warrant. So no one can just break down your door and come into your house. Even if they think there's a bad person in there, they've got to get to a warrant that authorizes them to do that. So that has not changed, right? The law didn't just disappear when you have a new president. So those things all still... A warrant, yes. Okay, anyone explain what a warrant is for those who don't know? Order from a judge, right? Saying what? Exactly. So a warrant is just a court order from a judge. So a prosecutor would go to, or a cop or an FBI agent would go to a judge and say, we have probable cause, meaning we have a good reason to think that something illegal is happening at this location, or that this person's doing something illegal, or there's something stolen, whatever it is, right? So we want approval to search this place without the person's permission. So the judge looks and says, okay, yeah, I think you have a reason to believe there's something going on there. Here's your warrant, take it. Then they go to you, they show you the warrant. Actually, they don't even have to show it to you. Once they have the warrant, they can just go and do it. And they'll let you know they have a warrant, and they can go into your house, into your mosque, or what have you, but they have to get a warrant in order to do that. Okay, so for ICE to enter your personal space, they need either a warrant or what? Consent. So you could always give any law enforcement officer approval to search your car, your house of worship, whatever. If you give them approval, they can do it. If you don't give them approval, then they need what? A warrant.
Now they have the warrant home undressed, so I have to give them a time, or I have rights to tell them I need to call somebody.
If they have a warrant, they do not have to wait. They're coming in if they have a warrant. So the question he asked was, well, look, if what if I just need time to get my house in order to whatever you? No, once they have a warrant, they're coming in without delay.
Is it a good idea to give consent?
To
give them the consent.
So look, as an attorney, I would say that, any attorney would tell you, never give permission to law enforcement to search your stuff, right? Just as a matter of principle, right? It's your personal space, it's your personal stuff. This is America, you've got rights. And that's just kind of a general position, right? Now, if you know you've done nothing wrong, you have nothing to hide, well, you might just say, well, let me just say yes, go ahead and search and get it over with, okay? You could do that. That's your right. But there have been incidents in which you had, and this is rare, but there have been incidents in which you had bad cops who planted drugs and other things on people when they were searching their cars and then arrested them for it, right? So again, if you say, no, I don't give consent, that means they have to have a reason to search your car or your house or what have you. And if they search you without a reason, then that means later that search cannot be legally upheld. If they plant something on you, if they do something like that, that's going to get thrown out of court because you didn't give them permission and they didn't have a reason to search you. I saw a hand over here. Yes. Yeah.
For the purpose for this person, but this officer, the state official wants to speak, and you give them access to your home.
Yeah.
Not for the purpose of searching, but just to enter.
Yeah.
Can they then exercise the search and maybe if you do not explicitly say,
Yeah.
I do not consent to
Yeah.
being searched?
So the question was, okay, what if I have a law enforcement officer comes to my house and they say, we just want to chat, we want to talk about something, right? And you invite them in to talk. Can at that point they start searching around your house looking for something? No. They can only be there as long as you have allowed them to be there, and they cannot go searching for things. But if they're sitting on your couch sipping tea and they see the guy they're looking for walk in, they're going to grab him, and they have the right because you let them in, right? But can they go in your bedroom and start opening up your drawers and all that? No, you need to give them consent to actually search. But once they're in, wherever area you're letting them in, they have free reign in that area. So if I'll give you another example. So if you say, and alhamdulillah, Muslims will not have this problem, inshallah. But if you invite an officer into your house, right, and you're sitting down talking, and he looks over and he sees, wait a minute, that looks like a marijuana cigarette sitting on your dresser there. He can arrest you for that. Right, you let him in, he saw it, he can do that, right? Now, if he had been outside the house, right, and he had no evidence you have that in there, he couldn't do that, right? We'd have no basis for that. But once you let him in, if he sees something, you got a problem. All right, so one important thing, a distinction here, is there's a difference between a judicial warrant and an ICE warrant. So an ICE warrant authorizes the arrest of the undocumented immigrant. It does not authorize them to break down the door of your mosque and come in to find the undocumented immigrant. It does not authorize them to break into your house to find the undocumented immigrant. A judicial warrant authorizes them to go into the mosque or the church or the house or the whatever to grab the person. So it's a distinction, it's an important distinction that this warrant allows the arrest of the person. This doesn't mean they have the right to come into your house. Yeah, sorry, was there a question here? Yes, sir.
Is there like ways, like they say you have a warrant, I have a warrant, like you could open the door for them and then they just barge in with a warrant? Is there like ways that you can make them prove that they have a warrant or if the warrant prove that the warrant is fake?
So the question was, okay, what if they try to trick me? What if they say we have a warrant? How do you know for sure? Should I open the door and let them pass it to me? Should I da-da-da? So a few things. One, if they say they have a warrant, you should certainly ask for it, okay, to see it, okay? Now, if they say, we're not giving it to you, let us in, you're going to have to let them in. You can't just get into a physical fight with the police or law enforcement. But again, if they were lying, if they didn't have the warrant and they come in anyway, well, they have violated the law. And now anything they find in there, they cannot later use that against you because you did not give them permission to come in and they came in without a warrant, okay? So it's good to ask for the warrant. If they have it, they might say something like, we have it, we'll show it to you after we come in, open the door. Or they might go ahead and give it to you and let you look at it and then come in. It's really up to them. But the bottom line is they know that they cannot just straight up do an illegal search without a warrant and lie about it because later they're going to be in trouble for doing that. Now with immigration, the one potential exception to this is if they're coming to get an undocumented immigrant, the whole goal is to grab that person. So if they somehow trick you and they come in and they grab the undocumented immigrant, well, they're not going to have to let him go later just because they tricked you, right? Once they got him, and he is here illegally, so he's done. So that is the one, risk there. So you should try to make sure, if you can, that you understand what kind of warrant the person has. And again, one thing I'll note here is that, as Muslims, we believe in following the law of the land in which we are in, right? So don't take anything I'm saying as some indication that it's okay to violate our laws, right? That's not okay, right? People should come here legally through the front door, not through the back door, right? At the same time, though, if you're a kid who was brought here illegally, through no fault of your own, right? Is it fair for you to be, arrested and thrown out of the country that you've known your entire life, right? Is it fair to be split apart from your mother, your father? Is that a humane way to deal with the problem? We say no. So don't take anything I'm saying here to think that we want to try to evade or prevent people from being held accountable. No, it's just that this is going to go overboard, right? It looks like it's going to go to splitting up families, targeting innocent kids, and people have been here for decades and done nothing wrong. And so it's important, no matter what the underlying issue is, immigration or a crime for that matter, that your rights are protected. Legal rights do not disappear simply because of the underlying issue. All right, I could go on for more, but I'm going to pause here because I want to make sure I take your questions. Last thing I'll say is that, look, President Trump is back. Biden's gone. Alhamdulillah, CAIR, we never left. We are here, alhamdulillah, no matter who the president is. We don't, our allegiance to the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, to any president. And so the nice thing about having an organization like CAIR around is that we're here to defend you no matter, inshallah, what is coming. And so please do call upon us if you see any of these potential problems becoming real problems. At the same time, don't panic. Don't worry too much. We are going to make sure that, inshallah, if we need to, we're taking legal action to protect the rights of people. But at this point, everything is theory. We're going to have to see what comes from the president. And there might be some ways to try to get some more moderation out of him. If he sees that some things are not passing muster in court, we'll see. But for now, our legal team, our government affairs team, everyone is ready to go to protect our rights. If this administration does something wrong, we'll stand up against them. If they do something right, we're happy to work with them, right? That's how politics is, right? You can't have constant enemies or constant friends. There are political leaders. And so, again, our goal is to, if they do something right, we'll work with them. If they do something wrong, we'll stand up against them. Palestine is the most unique issue that I would note, right? Everyone thought when Trump got elected, oh my goodness, that means there's never going to be a ceasefire. There's just going to be even the Israelis go even crazier. Trump is the one who forced them to accept a ceasefire, right? Unexpectedly, right? And he's given some indication that he does not like war breaking out over the world. So CAIR's approach with him is not just go to war, politically with the president, not to assume the worst about everything he does. We're being very selective. We're not just going to fight everything. We're going to stand when we need to and collaborate when we can. And we'll see how the next 4 years go, inshallah. So with that, I'll pause and take any questions you have, inshallah. Wa alaikum assalam.
So, one question that probably everybody would ask, where do you draw the line when it comes to free speech versus threatening scrutiny, and what language would arise to allowable versus not allowable? So, we have a wide spectrum. So we said, okay, so we have full freedom to say whatever we want as citizens, but then that protection increases as you go to visa. So doesn't the Constitution govern the state? Doesn't the Constitution give space and freedom for people to express their opinions without fear? Where do we draw the line? It's very confusing, and especially when it comes to academic institutions, which would be the target. Target number one in schools is colleges. And people fear for themselves. There are professors who have been fired from universities because they express their opinions about what's going on in Gaza or Pakistan, because they use the word genocide. So that is pretty.
Could you be a bottle of water?
Hard to kind of understand.
Yes. Okay. So excellent question. So the issue of free speech. So America is very unique in that we have expansive protections for free speech, way more even than some European countries. In some European countries, they have what are called hate speech laws. So you can be arrested for your speech. If you, for example, express hatred of Muslims or Christians or Jews or other communities, you can be arrested for that. In Germany, if you deny the Holocaust, you can be arrested for that, right? That doesn't exist here. In America, you can say all sorts of crazy, horrible stuff, and that's fine. You will not go to jail for it. You won't be arrested for it. You have the legal right to say horrible things in America, right? Now, there is a catch, though. You cannot do what? You cannot threaten violence against people, because that is what? A crime, right? That's not protected by free speech. You cannot defame someone, meaning you cannot say, this guy's a serial killer, right? Because that is lie, I hope, inshallah, obviously, and it defames his reputation, right? So he can sue you. So you can't do that, right? Okay? So there are limits to free speech. You can't just say whatever you want to say. Now, what we saw during the Gaza genocide is that some people thought that your right to free speech means that you can say whatever you want without consequence, which is not the same thing, okay? So the government can't do something, can't arrest you because you said free Palestine. Thank you. But it's possible your employer could fire you because you said free Palestine, right? Because there are two different things, right? The First Amendment is a limit on the government. It's not a limit on private corporations, okay? So I'll give you an example, okay? So let's say you're a Muslim and you own or for that matter, you're a Muslim and you're a Palestinian, you own a gas station, okay? And that doesn't sell alcohol, alhamdulillah. And one day, your employee comes into the store saying, from the river to the sea, Israel must be free. And they have a map of Israel that covers everything, all of modern day Israel, the West Bank, Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, okay? Now, can you, as the business owner, can you fire your employee for wearing that t-shirt? Anyone know?
Yeah, it happened on the gym. Lifetime, it was on the YouTube. A man, he was wearing that, as a matter of fact, and he was exercising. The manager came and said that your membership has been terminated.
Yeah.
He just terminated.
Yeah.
And he stood there and he called police and they came and escorted him out of.
Yeah, and the reason they did that is because this is not a hard and fast rule, but generally speaking, if you're a private business owner, okay, you have the right to decide who works for you and doesn't work for you with one limitation. You cannot discriminate against people based on what? Their protected characteristics. You can't hire or fire someone because they are a man or a woman, or because they are Muslim or non-Muslim, or because they're black or white, or because they're from this country or from that country. There are other, things that are protected by law. One of the things that is not protected by law is political speech. So the fact that you like Donald Trump is not a protected characteristic, right? If your boss doesn't want you working for him because you support Biden or Trump, they could have the right to fire you unless your contract provides you some protection from that. So now let's get to what you're getting at, right? So you have had some university professors who have been disciplined or fired because of their activism for Palestine, right? And what the universities argue is that, well, you said something that's harming our reputation, that's making it difficult for you to do your job, blah, blah, blah. If it's a private college, they've got much more leeway to limit speech than if it's a public college, because a public college is what? It's a government institution, right? And what applies to the government? The First Amendment, right? So a big question is it a public university or a private university? Okay, if it's a private university, they're gonna have much more leeway to punish and restrict speech than a public university. What the president's trying to do with this order is essentially saying that for immigrants, you basically have no free speech rights. That's what he's trying to do. It's basically, we can investigate you and decide to kick you out of the country if you say something that we think is un-American, right? That is not how it has worked before. Immigrants have the right to free speech too. That has been the way it works. So this is the question, is he going to be able to change that to the point that established immigrants are getting kicked out of the country because of their views, right? We say no, he says yes, we'll see what happens. If you're asking me what are the things you should not be saying, absolutely, it's what I said earlier. No matter whether you're an immigrant or a citizen, do not express support for organizations that have been designated terrorist groups, right? That can put you in some potential criminal danger. And if you're an immigrant, certainly could create, danger for your immigration status. So stay away from that, obviously. But other than that, criticizing the Israeli government, expressing views about that should be fine. That should be protected speech. But again, it could be a legal fight with this president. We'll see. Other questions? Hold that microphone close to your mouth, brother.
But the citizen matter, if the parents were on visitor visa or tourist visa, that's considered illegal?
No, that's not considered illegal. So the president's order says that only if both parents are here illegally. So if you were a tourist here, that means you're here legally if you have a tourist visa.
But it will be retroactive, I mean, if this implemented, or they can be from now on?
He said it's only proactive, meaning applying to people born in the future, not retroactive. But again, it's frozen in court right now, so it doesn't exist. But if it were ever implemented, that's what he said. Wa alaikum assalam.
Would come to the U.S. as like family sponsor, but they haven't received their green card, but they do have their visa printed on the passport.
Yeah.
Is that going to cause problems?
Are they here already?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if they're here already, then they're fine. The problem will be if did you say they've been authorized for the green card or not yet?
Yes, they
Okay.
have, and everything has been paid. It's a personal question. Sorry.
Yes. Have they gotten the green card yet, or are they still waiting for it? Okay. So it is possible that the president's new team will try to stop all of that, all the issuance of new visa, and do their vetting of people before they issue the green card. So it's possible that could happen. It's possible that green card might be held up and that they might do some new investigation. It's also possible they might just let it go and just issue the card since all that work has already been done. I don't know. It will depend. If they refuse to issue it, then I think, let us know. We'll see, or, what can be done. But because immigration is the one area where the government really has extreme leeway to do what they want to do up to a point, the options might be somewhat limited. But just let us know. We'll talk, inshallah. We have a question on the sister side.
So we have a lot of Muslim community who are asylum seekers, and right now the parents are very worried because we've been seeing all these images of the deportation, and there's one family that has been arrested by ICE and they're not under any criminal activities. Asylum seekers is it's a right. So is there anything we can do to prevent once they get arrested? Is there anything we can do, or once, if we decide to deport everyone, there's nothing, it's not in our hands, there's nothing we can do about it?
So the question was about asylum. So there is a legal right to seek asylum in this country. Anyone know what asylum is? Anyone try to explain it? So asylum essentially applies if you come to the United States and you have a reasonable fear that you will face persecution if you have to go back to your home country. So there were a lot of people who were Syrian who came here as asylum seekers because they would have been killed by Assad if they had stayed in Syria. You have a lot of immigrants at the southern border saying, I can't go back to Venezuela or wherever because I'm going to face some sort of persecution. So the government is supposed to, this is what they did in the past, if you come and you say, I'm asking for asylum, the government would say, okay, here's your court date. We're going to assess whether or not you have a valid asylum claim. While we do that, you can stay here until we make a decision. What the president has done is said that, number one, people seeking asylum are not going to be let in while we make that decision. You have to wait in Mexico or outside the country, and we'll let you know if we're going to give you asylum, right? Which they're not going to do. For those who have been granted asylum or have been granted the temporary status while the asylum works its way through the court, it seems what the president may be doing is going and detaining those people, but they still have the right to go through the asylum process, right? But now the risk is they're going to be sitting in a jail cell in an immigration center until a decision is made about their asylum request. So I say all that to say that if someone has been detained, certainly let us know, let an immigration attorney know, because there should be a legal fight about that to try to get them out while they wait for the asylum decision. But that might be what's happening there is he's saying, no, you can't just wander around. We're going to put you in detention, and then we'll make a decision about your asylum status. This year, yes.
Two questions.
Yes.
The first one is, if the law gets through and stuff, does that mean you still won't be able to get citizenship? And the second question is, can refugees still be able to come to America but by the UN?
Okay, so to the second part, the president has shut down, at least for now, the refugee resettlement program. So no refugees are being allowed in. And as I said, he canceled the people who already bought tickets, had their flights, all that's been canceled. So that is shut down. In terms of your other question, what was the first question? Oh, yeah. Can people still, yes, people can still apply for citizenship. They can still apply for the green card. The question is, will that be slowed down behind the scenes, right? That's the question. Or will the people applying be subject to all this new vetting criteria, like what are your personal views? Do you support Palestine? Are you critical of the government? That will be the question. And that might slow down the process or result in denials based on this new criteria. And what's dangerous is that we don't really always know what's happening behind the scenes when someone's application is being considered, right? So we may not even know if they're denying a person because of these, nonsensical criteria. So again, this could all end up in a legal fight if people start getting denied citizenship or denied a green card for reasons that don't make any sense or for reasons that are unclear. Wa alaikum assalam.
Thank you so much for giving us your time
Alhamdulillah.
and providing useful information. My question is, those aliens or refugees who came to the United States under the USA program, under the Act of 2007, so they have to wait like 1 year, and after 1 year, they can apply for the green card. So will they face any challenges or issues?
Yes, potentially. So what the president's order does is it says all immigrants, no matter how you came here, all immigrants should be subject to this new criteria. So anyone who came into that program, you should not be just kicked out, right? That's not what's happening. But what he's trying to do is saying that before we give you any new legal status, we're going to investigate your personal views, right? And we're going to investigate your personal views anyway to see if you should be allowed to stay here. So it is possible, not saying it will happen, but it is possible that those people who are here on that temporary 1-year status and then apply for the green card, it is possible that they may be subject to this new criteria. And depending on what they find, it might slow down the process or result in a denial. Again, this is why there could be a legal fight once they start trying to do this, because you can't just have these vague standards that don't make any sense and deny people status in that way. So that's why there might be a legal fight if they actually try to do it. But it could happen. They could try.
What the worst thing to do for those refugees come from that I said come from Syria and now Syria is still there, but they already got the citizenship. They try to take it back. Is they allowed to do that?
Now, if you're already a citizen, it's like you've hit home plate. You're fine, inshallah. The only no. Once you have U.S. citizenship, you're good. Now, if you were here on as an asylum seeker, right, because you were fearing Assad, now he's gone, alhamdulillah. Well, now the government might say, okay, go back, because you don't have anything to worry about anymore, so now your asylum application's denied, right? But if you've already gotten U.S. citizenship, well, you have citizenship, so you're good. That does not get taken away. Same thing, yeah. It's only people who have asylum, because the only base for them being here is they can't go back home safely. Once you can go home safely, well, then your asylum application would be denied. Now, you could always then apply for the green card and say, well, I just want to stay because I like America and I want to work here. You could always do that and apply, right? But you would have to get approved for that to stay. If you don't get approved and you're only an asylum seeker, then you have no base to be here anymore. Wa alaikum assalam.
We have many Syrian refugees came to the country recently. They don't have a green card yet, but they came through the United Nations. They have those all the paperwork done, so they are not asylum seekers. They came approved by U.S. to bring them in. Are they under the arrest?
What is their legal status? The people you're talking about. What do they have? Lawful permanent green card, tourist visa, refugee resettlement. What?
I don't know.
Okay,
So that's what I'm saying. They apply for the visa. They apply for the refugee.
Okay.
From Turkey, from Jordan,
Yes.
from all the
Yes.
And they came. They already
Yes.
And their situation now, they are applying for the green card.
Yes.
They don't have the green card, and I'm sure we have many people, they don't have the green card yet.
Yes.
So what's the situation? They are not, they didn't come to the country for like a B1 visa or tourist
Yeah.
visa. They came as a refugee from the beginning.
Yes. I got the question.
That's asylum? I don't
Yeah.
think it's asylum.
No, asylum is a very particular thing. A person would know if they're here under asylum status. So if that's not what they are, then it's a different category. Now, again, what the president's saying is that this criteria applies to everyone, all types of immigrants and even immigrants who are already here. But the asylum issue we were just talking about is that, putting aside President Trump, just put that aside for a moment. If someone was here as an asylum seeker and the fear that led them to get asylum no longer exists, like Assad is gone, well then they don't have a base to be here anymore, right? But if you're a refugee, not an asylum seeker, you came here as a refugee resettlement, right? Then no, you don't automatically get kicked out because the problem in your country was solved. But all this new criteria that the president has laid out could still apply to you. So there's still a risk of you being subjected to extreme vetting and your application for the green card being delayed or denied or what have you. So that's the risk. Again, not saying it's going to happen, but that's the risk for all immigrants, everyone, under this order. Walaikum salam. Yes.
My question is this. If you are a citizen or a permanent resident, when you go out and you want to come back, can we ask you to share your phone, open up, and to see what your thoughts are and what your is that do that? Are you obligated to say, okay, take it?
Excellent question. Excellent question. So normally, if the police were to walk up to you on the street and say, hey, I want to look at your phone, give it to me and unlock it for me, can they do that? No, not unless they have what? A warrant, right. So, but there's a loophole. When you are out of the country and you're coming back and you're at the border, that is a gray area where the government has all sorts of rights to search your stuff without a warrant. Because legally, they have the right to make sure that nothing dangerous is coming into the country, whether produce or weapons or anything like that. And so under the current loophole, they do have the right currently to take your phone. So what they normally do is they will say, we would like do you give us consent to take your phone and unlock it and search it? If you say no, then they would do one of two things. Either they'd say, all right, whatever, keep your phone. Or they would say, well, we're taking your phone and we'll give it back to you later. And then they'll take your phone, they'll try to hack it themselves, copy its contents, and they'll send it to you later. So you have the right as a US citizen and as a law firm resident to say, no, I do not give you consent. But then they could say, well, we're taking the phone anyway, in which case you'll have to give it to them. And then that's it, mashallah. We have a superstar in the making here, alhamdulillah.
Well,
May Allah protect you.
Inshallah, we'll stop here, but it's very important.
Hold on, I gotta finish that answer. So,
Okay.
yeah, no, I gotta finish that, yeah.
Good.
So, all right, but that's if you're a US citizen, right? Or an LPR. If you are not one of those two things, if you're here on a student visa, a worker visa, a tourist visa, a refugee, all that, you can be, when they ask you questions, you need to be much more cooperative than a US citizen would be, right? If you're a US citizen, you've got the right to come to the country. They can't keep you out, right? So you can be quite stubborn if you don't want to answer inappropriate questions. But if you are on a lesser visa and you don't have some guaranteed right to be here, well, then you probably have to give up your phone, answer all sorts of questions and all that because you don't have that same legal right to enter the country. So what I would say, and this is not legal advice, just a general good rule of thumb is, if you're a US citizen, you can be kind of stubborn and, say, nah, this is an outrage, right? And all that stuff. They're still going to take your phone, but you can say that. But if you're not a US citizen, then you generally need to be much more cooperative when you're at the border because you don't have the same guaranteed right to enter the country that other people have. Lawful permanent residents, green card holders, are pretty safe. You should be okay. But again, with this new president, No, I can't guarantee anything, right? All I can say is U.S. citizens are safe. Everyone else, I would be more cooperative when you're going through that interview. And if you feel like you're being mistreated, get the person's name, let us know later, and then we can fight about it later. But in the heat of the moment, cooperate as best you can, and then we'll deal with any mistreatment later, inshallah.
No, for the sake of time, I think I'm going to stop question and answer.
I'll hang around for a few minutes,
hang
inshallah.
around
Yeah.
for two very important things. I'd like to introduce you the Civic and Outreach Director, Sister Rashmi, and she will introduce you somebody very important for us, the CAIR representative in Alabama. Inshallah. Please.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Brother, your presentation was just phenomenal.
Alhamdulillah.
Y'all, CARE has been such an incredible resource, an incredible partner. We've been talking about you coming, Brother Edward, since the summer. And I am so glad that the time was so serendipitous that you ended up coming so we could address this incredible issue. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Rashmi Sharif. I am from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and as Brother Nassim mentioned, I am serving as the BIS Civic Engagement Liaison. I have been working for over 20 years now with our elected officials vis-a-vis the University of Alabama, very, very involved in the Birmingham metro area and the state. And one of the goals of the work that I'm doing is I am scheduling meetings with our elected officials as the Birmingham Islamic Society. And I'm going to tell y'all one thing. The reception has been so warm. The reception has been so curious. You know why? They're like, we've never met y'all before. Y'all have never come. This message is for our U.S. citizens, our brothers and sisters who are American, okay? I often hear when I go to parties, back home this, back home that. Y'all, this is home. When I think of back home, I think of Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I think of football. I think of eating my father's khichdi with ghee alongside public fried chicken. And that is what your children are going to think of when they think of back home. They are going to think of Birmingham, Alabama. One of the reasons why Brother Edward even has to address these issues is because of our elected officials, right? It is our responsibility as Americans to engage in our political process and vote, and not only vote, but also, y'all, we have every right to run for office. So it is my pleasure tonight to introduce all of you to a woman who is a part of our community, who is running for Hoover City Council. She is a serial entrepreneur, has brought incredible business to the Birmingham metro area. And the time is now. The time is now for us to be at the decision-making table and to ensure that these kinds of elected officials don't make these kinds of sweeping decisions that impact our community so greatly. The reason why this is happening is we are not at the table. So at this time, I would love to introduce my friend, Tanvir Patel.
Assalamu alaikum. Very happy to be here, and I just wanted to say that thank you for the great presentation. We have give a lot of emphasis on the national elections, and that is great to do. But the local elections is what affects us. All our children go to school. My children went to school here in Hoover. Businesses are running in Hoover. Our masjid is in Hoover. Zoning decisions all happen at the city council. So there are a lot of decisions that are made, and I'll be very happy to be your voice, our community voice, in the city of Hoover. But I cannot do this without your help. I need your votes, and I need your contributions. And with your support, just with our community support, I can win, inshallah. So I am looking forward to seeing you all, interacting with you all. And the elections is in August 26th for the city council, and I am running for the city council of Hoover. So please come, please vote. Without your votes and without you championing me, I cannot do this. So inshallah, wait. Yeah, and if you need my website is Tanveen number 4 Hoover.com. So please go there and read about it, and there is a thing to donate to the campaign. There's also a thing to sign up, so please sign up, please encourage others to vote and encourage others to support. Without you, I really cannot do this. TANVER number 4 Hoover.com.
So our CAIR representative now, inshallah.
I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Brittany Shields. I will be the CAIR staff attorney for Alabama. I look forward to meeting all of you and working with you closely over the next long while, I hope.
Inshallah.
But yes, please come say hello. I would love to meet you. I look forward to getting to know you all a little bit better. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
With that, inshallah, thank you so much for attending, and thank you from my heartfelt thank you, Brother Edward, for doing it, inshallah, and we look forward to work with you.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.